For weeks, President Obama has said the NSA's information gathering on Americans was strictly limited and tightly overseen by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, or FISA court. But today, the Washington Post reported the spy agency has overstepped its legal authority thousands of times each year since Congress expanded its powers in 2008. And the FISA court's chief judge told the Post his court doesn't have the ability to independently verify if the spy agency is complying fully with privacy protection rules. The report was based on documents leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. Washington Post correspondent Carol Leonnig worked on both stories and joins me now. And Carol, welcome.
Thank you, Margaret.
First of all, what sort of information has the NSA been collecting and storing on Americans that is beyond the scope of the law or the court rules?
The court's rules are very strict on several things, but the most important is not intruding on Americans' privacy when there's no reason to suspect that they have some link to terrorist organizations or are in communication with foreign powers. And the violations that are documented in this memorandum from the NSA, remember, we're only seeing a partial window. We're seeing what the NSA headquarters reported in a year's time, not what all the other NSA satellite offices offered, but that in those instances they broke some of the privacy rules and they broke some other rules that have to do with foreign intelligence gathering. The most striking, probably, example that people are taken by is that there were a series of phone call records stored from the Washington, D.C. area code, zip code, forgive me, area code 202. And this was a glitch. Essentially, it was because a switch misread 202 for 20, which is the country code for Egypt. We are allowed to collect a lot of records about foreign communications, but when you start collecting a lot of Washington, D.C. phone records, it's another story.
Now, had these violations been reported to the court, as I gather they're required to?
What's unclear from the document, because it's really an NSA internal audit, is how many of these were reported to the court. A portion of them should have been, that have to do with FISA authorities when you're looking into Americans' records. And we honestly don't have the rest of the chain to know what was reported. What we do know is that there are thousands of them, and that the Obama administration has assured us and the public before this came out that it happens infrequently, once in a while.
Now, equally startling was your companion piece, what the district court judge, Reggie Walton, said to you about the FISA court's authority when you asked him about this. Explain that a little more.
So he's the chief judge of the secret spy court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, that is supposed to be the linchpin for the checks and balances on our government spying programs. It takes it really seriously. It does everything in a classified secret skiff, but it's a diligent, careful court. What he essentially said was, there are practical limitations on what we can do, and we must trust the government to report to us these violations because we can't independently, with our resources, ferret that out.
And why can't the court ferret that out, verify the information independently?
Well, there are the obvious issues of resources. I mean, this is a court with a number of judges who all have plenty of busy dockets themselves. Reggie Walton has a very busy docket himself. And they have a staff of 5 lawyers.
For the whole court?
Yes. So those lawyers receive this information about the compliance violations. They review them. They elevate the most serious ones to a judge if it warrants it. And that's a very practical reason why it would be impossible to be policing and looking behind the government when they report thousands of violations.
Now, doesn't this compliance or violations of compliance information also have to be reported to Congress and the Department of Justice?
It does.
Do they verify it?
Well, Congress has a lot more in the way of staff for reviewing. Do we know the degree to which they look over it? We don't. I did find it interesting last night when we asked Senator Feinstein for her comment, and as you know, Senator Feinstein has been a pretty arch supporter of the government.
The Intelligence Committee.
Exactly, and a very strong ally for the government and the NSA in supporting these efforts. She said that she feels that this subsection of violations that she doesn't have authority over, she should now perhaps gain authority to review some of those that have to do with foreign communications.
Now, what was the reaction both from the administration and also on Capitol Hill?
There's been a lot of reaction. Initially, the White House was not commenting for our story. The NSA, that I noticed this morning, issued a statement saying these are unintentional violations, and we use this exercise always to try to improve our work, and we keep trying to improve our work so our violations will go down. On the Hill, you've already heard what I said about Senator Feinstein, but Speaker Pelosi said these are very disconcerting numbers, and she wants to look more deeply into them.
Do you think this will add fuel to the fire behind the idea that in the FISA court you need a opposing counsel? There needs to be somebody else in there other than the government lawyers?
I think this will add fuel to the concept that we shouldn't all feel safely assured that violations are rarely happening and that oversight is robust and full. And as for whether a privacy advocate should be added to the court, that's really not my role. That's one of the things that's been mentioned on the Hill. There are other people who've raised really good practical questions about how, in the dead of night, a privacy advocate can be summoned to weigh in on whether or not some collection can take place. That's something for others to hammer out. But clearly, these two things together raise questions about the assurances we've received from the administration.
Well, Carol Leonnig, Washington Post, thank you.
Thank you.